WJW-TV 8. And Newscenter 8's Neil Zurcher has a look back at old friends and some memories.
That electronic wail is our birthing cry from 40 years ago. On December the 17th, 1949, this test pattern flickered on the 120,000 estimated television sets here in northern Ohio. We were Channel 9, not 8, and our call letters were WXEL. Our first news director and anchorman, Bob Emery, showed that radio was still a very big influence. The set was just a desk in front of a curtain. The microphone was very large. In those pre-women's lib days, the talented Alice Weston, the first lady of Cleveland television, was relegated to a kitchen set for her show. John Fitzgerald, who would become a fixture in Cleveland sports over the next 3 decades, probably had no idea that one day he would be called a pioneer in Cleveland television. The announcer on that very first day was Howard Hoffman, who would go on decade after decade with us, a jack of all trades, his rich voice becoming our trademark. And of course there were other faces, friends of our past. In those early years, a montage of faces that many of us grew up with. In 1954, we moved to 1630 Euclid Avenue and became WJW-TV, and moved to Channel 8 on the dial. The late Warren Guthrie would probably have objected to being called legendary, but that's what he was as he anchored our news shows for over a dozen years in the 1940s and 50s. Legendary because he never used a script.
CBS wanted me to interview for a local show out there, which is a bigger paying market, and they insisted I use script. I said, nuts to you, I can't do it. So I didn't get the job.
In the 1960s, some new faces came on board that are still around. Dick Goddard, who made weather forecasting a state-of-the-art in Cleveland television. Dave Buckle, who brought us the news for over a generation. Veteran crime reporter Bill McKay, who joined us in the late 1960s from Akron. Our good friend Pete Carey, the first black journalist to work in Cleveland television. Pete incidentally retired this week after a 21-year career. And it was 1967 when I started traveling for TV8, looking for stories across the back roads. I used a bus in those days. Today I'm still traveling, but my transportation's a bit sportier. It was 1965 that Virgil Dominic came to Cleveland to be the main anchor at our competitor TV3. Today, as president and general manager of TV8, Virgil says it was a bit different being an anchor in the 1960s.
The main difference was there wasn't the amount of video in the newscasts in those days because the staffs were much smaller than what we have now, Neil. So there was a lot more reader-type copy that the anchor not only had to write, but he also had to memorize because there were no teleprompters in those days.
Down through the years, we remember the laughter that has been given us by Tim Conway, Ernie Gallardi Anderson, Houlihan, Franz the Toy Maker, and Big Chuck and Little John. We also remember the tears for the untimely death of our friends Marty Ross and Marie Stewart. As the years have gone by, the faces have changed, new faces to meet new challenges. And yet, here at the end of 4 decades, it's good to look back, to remember some of the faces that have shared parts of our lives, the faces of friends. I'm Neil Zurcher, Newscenter 8.
Boy, I'm glad I cut my hair since then. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thanks for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here with news and weather updates tonight at 11. Have a
season. Tonight, our traveling man Neil Zurcher takes us southeast to visit some of the brightest and most spectacular displays. He also gets a peek at how the English celebrate the holidays. Here's Neil and a one-tank trip.
It's time to seek out the brightest of our towns and cities, and even a quiet rural crossroads can sparkle on a December night. Just north of Dayton, you'll find the small town of Ludlow Falls. These falls are beautiful by day, but in a winter's night, the local firemen string them with lights and turn it into a holiday fantasy land. Ludlow Falls during the holidays is brought to all of us as a gift of the local volunteer fire department. The Union Jack flies high here in nearby Fairborn, Ohio, outside the British Tea Room. An authentic slice of England transported here to Montgomery County. You'll find the delicacies that smack of Dickens and A Christmas Carol. Here you can find plum pudding and trifles.
It has jello, a fruit cocktail, and pieces of sponge, and then the layer of custard, then the layer of cream, and then the sprinkles on the top.
The Christmas teas will go on here daily until Christmas Eve. But this is the best reason to drive hours to reach this small town. This is Clifton Mill at Christmas time, the world's largest water-powered grist mill, outlined against a December night. The banks of the Little Miami River turned into a river of 70,000 twinkling lights. Nearly 200,000 lights sparkle and bring the night alive. There is an admission charge to the mill. The light display will be on nightly until New Year's Day. Clifton can be reached by Interstate 71 south to Columbus and west on Interstate 70 to State Route 72 south to Clifton. Best of all, it's just a one-tank holiday trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Well, that'd be worth a trip if you knew Sam Wesh wouldn't be there, huh? That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening and go Cavs.
A place where your only critics are the crickets. Faith Ranch, a place to find autumn right here in Ohio. Harrison County can be reached from Cleveland by Interstate 77, State Route 250, and Route 9. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Well, it looks like fun, doesn't it?
That was a lot of fun.
And there's nothing better than food cooked outside.
Nothing better. And what kind of corn was that?
Yeah. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening, everyone. Well, the beauty of autumn captures our eyes and our imagination, Tim. Tonight, Neil discovers some good old down-home cooking and a bargain hunter's paradise. It's all found within a picturesque pastoral setting on a one-tank trip.
Autumn sometimes comes slowly to eastern Ohio. Here at the Beaver Creek State Park, nestled against the Pennsylvania state line, it's a time of year for slow walks. A time to enjoy the spread of rust-colored leaves. A time to listen to the music of the river as it twists and turns through miles and miles of parkland. Here you can smell the perfume of a pine forest on a crisp fall morning as birds call to each other in the treetops. This is a place of beauty, a place to look upon autumn. You won't need a crisp autumn day to enjoy the food here at Der Dutch House in nearby Columbiana. Plain down-home cooking with a salad bar that boasts over 40 items is the attraction. No reservations accepted, and there's often a line waiting to be seated, despite the fact the restaurant has expanded several times.
Well, when we started 6 years ago, and then the next 4 years we built on 4 times. Each year we build a piece on. We started out with a seating capacity of about 70, and now we're up to 300.
If you like your autumn with crowds and flashing lights, then you'll want to make a trip to Rogers, Ohio. It's sort of like the circus and a county fair came to town on the very same day. It's called Flea Market. And this flea market stretches over 15 acres and is claimed to be one of the biggest in Ohio. On a good day, upwards of 1,000 vendors crowd these aisles, offering everything from sticks to whirligigs, from a classic radio to a car of the same period. Each Friday, year-round, people flock to Rogers to begin a day-long search that sometimes lasts until midnight, a search for bargains.
I come down here about every other 2 months, something like that, whenever I get a chance. Usually find something.
Inside the barns, auctions go on nearly non-stop through the evening, selling fresh produce, eggs by the basket and the case, selling to the highest bidder. Sometimes as many as 5 auctioneers are chanting at the same time. Columbiana County and Rogers, Ohio can be reached from Cleveland by the Ohio Turnpike and Ohio Route 7. It's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News with Dan Rathers next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight. Traveling man Neil Zurcher sets his sights on the Ohio River and the newest paddle wheel boat on the water. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
At dawn, it appears as though ghosts are dancing on the surface of the Ohio River. This is Marietta, where Ohio began, and where so much once happened that an autumn morning fog lends a touch of timelessness to this historic river city. The Campus Martius Museum is a living reminder of those days when this was the gateway to the Northwest Territory, when the Ohio and Muskingum rivers were the only highways that linked an emerging nation with its new lands. The downtown still bears the imprint of its New England founders, from cupolas to cobblestones. It's still a town of cottage industries, like Rossi's Pasta, where you can watch gourmet pastas made by hand. Rigatini, linguine, and special hand-cut lasagna are just some of the items turned out at this riverfront factory. The river is what this town is all about. The sound of the giant water wheels that once drove the queens of the river, the sternwheelers, is heard again. This is the new Valley Gem, just launched weeks ago in time to carry passengers on fall tours up to Muskingum, through mile after mile of tree-lined riverbank that in the weeks ahead will sparkle like the rainbow that chases the Valley Gem's churning wheel. Here you can sit back and look and listen as history unfolds before you.
Muskingum River was also the first river in the United States to have a series of locks and dams built on it.
The new Valley Gem can carry over 300 people and is the only tour boat in Ohio that passes through the locks here on the Muskingum River. Locks that have been a part of this river for many years.
It's a big chunk of history because you see those locks are built 20 years before the Civil War.
And autumn will not end the journeys of the Valley Gem. With this new heated boat, Sands plans to continue charter trips throughout the winter when he says the river has a special beauty.
The river is always very clear, and of course after the foliage falls, why the trees are kind of bare, but the river itself is very pretty.
So join us for a look at autumn where Ohio began. Marietta can be reached from Cleveland by taking Interstate 77 south. It's about a 3-hour drive, and best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And of course, it's right on the way to Ohio University.
And you know that route well,
I sure do. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11 o'clock. Have a good evening.
Happen in Ohio. That's a destination tonight as our traveling man Neil Zurcher continues his journey looking for the best places in the state to see the fall spectacular. Here's a one-tank trip.
Cambridge, Ohio. This is coal country. As you travel down busy highways near this town, you may get a glimpse from the road of the largest dragline coal extractor in the world, the Big Muskie. Now, you ordinarily can't get this close to the Big Muskie, but I wanted you to see just how big, how truly big this piece of equipment is. Just the cab alone is the size of a 6-story apartment building, and the bucket is capable of digging 325 tons of earth in a single bite. The entire piece of equipment weighs a whopping 27 million pounds. But where coal was once mined to make electricity for the Ohio Power Company, it's now being turned into a place of beauty. These are the Ohio Power lands today. 30,000 acres of them sprawling over 2 counties here in central Ohio. Lush lands that now contain lakes, 350 lakes ranging from small ponds to those that stretch almost to the horizon. Over 4 million trees now dot the landscape where the big muskie once scraped the earth clean. Fish now abound in the lakes, and best of all, this land is open to the public absolutely free. All you have to do is apply for a free use permit from any Ohio Power Company office or the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Here you can see autumn spread over Ohio, across quiet roads, a quaint covered bridge, or through thistle that guards a lake's edge. If you come to spend the night, consider this historic mansion that was once home to a Cambridge industrialist. Today it's a bed and breakfast that offers some real bargains for a whole family.
For a single person to spend the night in our one room, it's $35, and the suite is $55 for up to 5 people.
Hot dogs were the reason the Coney Island restaurant got its name here in Cambridge, but today it's a full-service restaurant. It's just that the name is stuck around.
It's tradition now. Everybody's known us as the Coney Island from the time we started, and for us to change the name now, it would be a little bit superficial.
Tourists by the busloads have also discovered that the best pie in Cambridge is made daily here at the Coney Island. So be it camping or fishing, driving through a tunnel of autumn-stung trees, try the Ohio Power lands to see fall at its best. Just take I-77 south to the Cambridge area. It's only a one-tank trip. October is usually the time of year that I say goodbye to you for the season. But this year, because you've asked for it, we're going to keep traveling every week throughout the winter right into spring. Each week bringing you a brand new one-tank trip. I hope you'll come along. I'm Neil Zurcher for Newscenter 8.
And as you can tell by now, Neil's seal of approval for food is merely,
Yeah. I'd like to sample the strawberry pie myself.
you and me both. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thanks for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a great weekend.
Ohio. Tonight, Neil visits an old cider mill and boards the Penitentiary Glen Choo-Choo. Here's a one-tank trip.
It's the sound of Halloween, a steam-powered motor chugging the theme of October, producing the steam that drives the wheels that hauls the apple harvest to the grinder, and it finally falls into the cider press. This is Sunrise Farm in Burton, where cider is still made each autumn, much as it has been for nearly a century on this old press. Inside the nearby market, fresh apple fritters are being made, as are caramel apples, the sound and the taste of Halloween. This is also the sound of autumn, the slow clip-clop of horses' hooves here at the Lake Metro Parks farm, one of the newest attractions in the park system. Each Sunday you can take a ride in a real horse-drawn wagon that wanders over acres of this under-construction park. You'll pass through tunnels of trees ablaze with color and pause on hilltops where flocks of geese take wing, honking their displeasure at the interruption of their feeding. The Lake Metro Parks has much to see and do. Visit their Animal Rehabilitation Center at the Penitentiary Glen Reservation, where injured wild animals are nursed back to health, or given lifetime care if they cannot be returned to the wild. And at Penitentiary Glen, you'll find one of the most unique attractions in Ohio's county parks. Listen. The sound of a speeding locomotive. Only this one is less than 4 feet long. This is the Lakeshore Steamers Club that runs their model trains capable of carrying humans through a half-mile of forest and glens here at the park. The little trains run at special events at the park year-round. Call the park for the schedule. The best part is the cost.
Absolutely nothing. It is our pleasure.
The Lake Metro Parks, one of Ohio's finest attractions, can be reached from Cleveland by going east on I-90 to Route 306 and Route 6. Best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
How'd you like to have one of those in your backyard?
I love it.
Yeah, a lot of fun. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you right back here tonight at attractions. That's the destination this week of our traveling man, Neil Zurcher. Here's Neil and a one-tank trip.
If you're looking for a spot for a quiet weekend, a place away from all distractions, a place of simple beauty, then head for the hills of Ohio, the Hocking Hills, and the Inn at Cedar Falls. Here in this barn-like structure, high on a hill overlooking the Hocking State Park, are the rooms, each furnished with real antiques and plank floors, yet all have air conditioning and private baths. Still, there's something missing. There are no clocks, no radios, and no television sets.
It is a place for people to come and get away and for R&R. We do lots of nature walks and have naturalists in from all over Ohio that will lead those on bird watching or learning about tree identification, those sorts of things.
Besides breakfast served in this 1840 log cabin dining room, they also offer gourmet lunches and dinners by reservation. The breakfast, by the way, is included in the price of your room. Travel these back roads and you'll find all kinds of interesting little shops, like this one. Here everything sold is either made by family members or friends, from furniture to dried flowers, to an old-fashioned puzzle lock. Sunlight is filtered through the treetops of ancient residents of these hills, hills and valleys that have given birth to countless legends of both fact and fiction. What is real is the beauty of these Hocking Hills state parks, like the majesty of Ash Cave, where water tumbles diamond-like over 150 feet to the pool below. A tiny waterfall that teases and entices. The sands of an ocean that once covered this area carpet the cave's mouth. Here the seasons pass, not in years, but in centuries. Here, the beauty of Ohio not only lives, but endures. You can reach the Hocking Hills by following Interstate 71 south to Columbus, then Route 33 southeast to Logan. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that is all of our news at 6. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope you'll join us again tonight at 11.
And stay tuned for the CBS Evening News.
Makes this week as he drives into November on a one-tank trip.
Walk through a forest in the late autumn. It's a quiet time. The cold has chased away the residents, and all that is left is the stark beauty of nearly barren trees, surrounded by a carpet of golden leaves. This is Davy Woods in Urbana, Ohio, the newest nature preserve in the state. Experts say this tree has probably stood since Abraham Lincoln was president. And these giant poplars may date back to the time of Thomas Jefferson. Contributions by the Davy Tree Company made it possible for the state to buy this land for everyone. And Jack Joy, who has spent much of his life working with trees, says it is forests like this one that makes autumn in Ohio as good as anywhere.
It has a beautiful stand of beech and sugar maple, some 103 acres here, very large poplar trees that probably date back to the 1800s.
Almost as colorful as the leaves are these chips at the Mumford Potato Chip Company in Urbana. For over a half-century, this small family-owned deli has been turning out fresh chips each day that they sell by the pound, fresh and warm. Ohio has its own land before time. It's the Cedar Bog just south of Urbana. Here, hundreds of acres of primeval landscape contains the residue of the Glacier Age. Here you will find Ohio of 10,000 years ago, a wooden plank walkway, the only reminder that you are still in the 20th century.
Sometimes out here you get a sense in the middle of the winter that the Ice Age has not left West Central Ohio.
A small flower that has survived the frost moves Jaworski to poetry. Somehow it seems very appropriate in this wild place.
Leaves are gone and birds have flown, and frost-thinning nights and shortening days portend that the aged year is near at end. Then doth thy sweet and quiet eye look through its fringes to the sky, blue as if the sky let fall a flower from its cerulean wall.
Urbana can be reached by Interstate 71 south of Cleveland to Route 36 west. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Those leaves are pretty, but I've raked so many, I don't want to see any till next year.
And snow's on its way
That's
now.
right. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you right back here to one of the loveliest parts of Ohio and a place that serves flapjacks the size of manhole covers. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
Come walk with us on a snowy day through what some have said is one of the most beautiful spots in the United States. That's what the National Geographic magazine calls the Clifton Gorge here in southwest Ohio. It's taken eons for the Little Miami River to carve a twisting, churning stream through the rocks of this 255-acre park. This is also one of the few public parks in Ohio that allows rock climbers to practice their sport. Once there were 70,000 of these water-powered grist mills. Today, the Clifton Mill is one of a handful still operating, and this one is believed to be the largest left in the world. A miller still grinds corn, oats, and wheat into flour. The grinder operated by the waters of the Little Miami River. The mill is open for tours and houses a unique restaurant where breakfast is a specialty. I asked for a small order of pancakes, and this is what I got. They tell me the pancakes used to be even bigger.
People couldn't put syrup on them. There were very innovative ways people were trying to figure out how to put syrup. They would run down over the plate.
And local folks say be sure to try their oatmeal pie. They claim if you like oatmeal cookies, you'll love oatmeal pie. A few miles down the road is the town of Yellow Springs. Here you can spend the night in a mansion that once housed one of the early founders of Antioch College. The Morgan House Bed and Breakfast offers a comfortable room with breakfast at rates starting at $35 a night.
Gavin! Gavin!
Ben Young is the third generation of his family to call the cows for milking at what may be the last dairy in Ohio that owns and milks its own cows. They're also one of only 2 dairies in the state allowed to sell raw, unpasteurized milk.
It's just the way cow make it. It's her natural food. It's much richer and tastes great.
He says that's one of the reasons for the popularity of their dairy, which is open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The other is a super rich ice cream that they make right here and sell. The ice cream with a taste that only exists in most people's memory. Yellow Springs can be reached by Interstate 71, then east and I-70 to U.S. Route 68 south. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Can we drive 2.5 hours for a piece of oatmeal pie?
No, I don't think we can get that oatmeal pie tonight. And he didn't bring us any. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thanks for sharing your your time with us, and we hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening. Go Cavs!
That looked good.
A special allotment of limited edition 1992.
With a delightful place to spend Thanksgiving down on the farm. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
If you want to give your family a traditional Thanksgiving this year, that's turkey on the hoof, you might find that turkey's a bit smarter than you think, especially when he sees you with an axe. If he's going to be your Thanksgiving dinner, you'll have to be a lot faster than I am.
But if you can't run fast enough to catch the turkey or you're too kind-hearted, you might want to try this. Your Dutchman restaurant in Walnut Creek. They're open on Thanksgiving for dinner.
This popular Amish-style restaurant will be serving from 10 in the morning on Thanksgiving. And since the Amish work very hard, they enjoy hearty dinners. So you won't go away hungry from this place.
We're going to have chicken, we're going to have ham, we have roast beef, and we're going to have our turkey.
And best of all, while they do recommend reservations, Alan says anyone that walks in, reservations or not, will be served on Thanksgiving Day. The prices range from $7 to $10, and there's no charge for the view. Speaking of the view, a November morning is a special time in Ohio's Little Switzerland, with sunrise and cornfields taking center stage. If you would like to try some of the very best cheese this area is famous for, try a ride south to the Pearl Valley and the place where championship cheese like Swiss, Alpine Lace, and Colby is made. There are lots of free samples, and you can see the process that turns milk into cheese through windows in the factory. Cheese making usually takes place in the morning. This is the land of Ohio's Amish, who with simple dignity live their lives away from the mainstream of technology. If you would like to spend the night amongst them, you can do so in this converted barn that is the newest attraction here in Sugar Creek. Here, for $50 a night, you can enjoy the comforts of a room with a private bath, but you'll notice no telephones, no television or radios.
You find that you come to places like this that you have a touch of privacy and you talk to each other because there's no TV going, no radio, and you just talk and communicate better.
And yes, those are satin sheets on the bed. Sleeping in a barn has never been so comfortable. Sugar Creek can be reached from Cleveland by Interstate 77 and State Route 39. And best of all, it's only a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
You know, I hope Neil got that wake-up call. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
He looks so much different when he's like this. Well, thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening. Every winter.
If visions of dolls dance in your kids' heads, you'll want to stop at the Back Porch and Miniature Shop here on McCorkle Avenue in Charleston. Many one-of-a-kind dolls, some of them made right here, are available. From large, lifelike ones to the store's trademark, dolls tinier than a human hand. A very big reason many people are flocking to Charleston during the holiday season is this boat, the West Virginia Belle, capable of carrying 1,200 people up and down the Kanawha River.
You know, each deck has its own charm, but this is the third deck, and it's a veritable fantasy land.
But the real magic happens when the lights come on at night as the majestic Belle sweeps down the river in the December evening. Sparkling like diamonds as she passes the magnificent West Virginia State Capitol. Her deep triple-toned horns saluting all. The holiday charm of West Virginia can easily be reached by taking Interstate 77 south to Charleston. It's about a 5-hour drive, and best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news at 6. Hi, Bob.
Oh, look, everybody.
It's Bob the
My
dog.
dog, Bob the Wonder Dog.
Stay tuned for the CBS Evening News.
Our traveling man Neil Zurcher says there is all that and more in Ashtabula, and it's just a one-tank trip.
It's like a scene from everyone's favorite memory of an American Christmas. The jingle of bells. The steady clop-clop of the horses' hooves. The expectancy in the faces of the children. This is Manners Tree Farm in New Lyme, Ohio, in Ashtabula County, where for the price of your Christmas tree, you can have a memory for your family. The horse-drawn wagons are there every day until Christmas to haul visitors into the forest of 4 kinds of pine trees to find just the right tree. The best seller?
Most popular Christmas tree is a white pine, and the white pines were native to this area back many, many years ago. In fact, when the early settlers first came, why, this was all white pine forest.
Ashtabula County is also the covered bridge capital of Ohio. At last count, there were 14 of these bits of Americana still standing, each one looking like a living holiday card. The county engineer's office in Jefferson offers a map of the county that shows the location of each bridge. newest holiday attraction in Ashtabula County, the North Coast Wonderland, 4,500 square feet packed with animation and fantasies. It's all the idea of Lou Rosati of North Coast Electronics, who has turned his store into a tunnel of light and music and memories. It takes a bit longer than setting up the family Christmas tree.
We usually start in August, start moving the product out. This is storage area, and then we convert it back, start setting the backdrops and everything down, and start putting the animation in place.
The nicest part about this attraction in Ashtabula is that it's free. Rosati says it's his gift to his community. Ashtabula can be easily reached. Just go east from Cleveland on Interstate 90, and best of all, it's just a one-tank holiday trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And well worth it. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening. Man Neil Zurcher says it's a town that combines the quaintness of Europe with a year-round holiday spirit. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
Did you know that Bavaria is only a few hours from Cleveland? Bavaria, as it's portrayed in Frankenmuth, Michigan. From its turreted inn to the charm of its covered bridge at sunset. From its quaint shops, where you can wander through a rainbow of products, to its candy makers, this bit of Michigan has been transformed into a bit of Europe. And at night, the magic intensifies, especially during the holidays. One of the best ways to see and enjoy the magic of night here in Frankenmuth is to let someone else do the driving, like this stretch limousine operated by the Bavarian Inn. For about $30, you and your family can sit back in luxury as the town glides by. Bronner's on the outskirts of town celebrates the holiday 365 days every year. This is the largest holiday store in the world. Over 1 acre in the store carries all kinds of Christmas decorations, both commercial and for the home. Some of the decorations are made right here, like these hand-painted glass balls. Linda Barrera has been painting these for years. In fact, she has created over 250,000 special holiday ornaments.
Can be like a confirmation ornament, baptism ornament, marriage. It just kind of tells your whole life history on the Christmas tree.
Inside and outside, you'll find the holidays here at Frankenmuth, Michigan. To reach Frankenmuth, take the Ohio Turnpike west to Route 23, follow Route 23 north to Flint, Michigan, and I-75, and then north to Frankenmuth. Best of all, it's just a holiday one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And Dick says that if you insist on sticking your head out of the sunroof of the limo, to take a wind chill chart.
Or ride a bike.
That's all of our news at 6. Thank you for sharing. Good eating, good bargains, and a place for a winter getaway weekend. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
If you've ever had a craving for buffalo wings, you know, those spicy chicken wings made famous in Buffalo, New York, well, you don't have to drive to New York to have the real thing. We found some of the best we've ever tasted right here in Madison, Ohio, at the Romans 4 restaurant. The folks who run this are from Western New York and introduced buffalo wings to Ohio 13 years ago. The secret to really great buffalo wings? Well, a secret sauce and one other ingredient.
You have to use a good chicken wing.
Are these frozen or fresh?
No, they're not frozen. They're all fresh.
By the way, this is their small portion. They sell buckets of 50 of the wings for under $8. If you're counting your pennies, you'll want to make a stop at Aurora Farms Flea Market and Outlet Mall. That mall keeps getting bigger each year with more and more factory outlet stores. flea market, where it all started, well, it still operates each Wednesday and Sunday year-round. A good shopper can find some bargains here. If you've been promising yourself a getaway weekend, you can't do much better than the historic Riders Inn here in Paynesville. Just recently refurbished and reopened for overnight guests, the inn offers 6 elegant rooms, all with private baths. The best part is the price, $65 a night for 2 people, and that includes breakfast in your room. Incidentally, the inn was built in 1812 and many of the furnishings are original, including, some of the employees say, a resident ghost.
I have not personally seen the ghost, but our assistant manager and all of our guests on Halloween night swear they saw the signs of the ghost in closing some doors.
The ghost, by the way, is believed to be a woman, and Elaine says she appears to like the reopened inn. Paynesville, Madison, and Aurora, Ohio, all an easy destination and just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Hey, and those ghosts would love these buffalo wings, right?
They would.
They are outstanding. We want to
Very
thank
tasty.
Romans 4 in Madison for sending these over to us, which
Yes.
we're going to share.
We'll have them out of Dick's soup mug.
Right. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening and go Cavs.
Go get them.
Says one of our top summer vacation areas is a great place to visit and enjoy and save money in the wintertime. Here's Neil on a one-tank trip.
This quiet place. This place where the sun stretches across the winter ice. This is Sandusky Bay, vacation land. The summer crowds are gone, replaced by flocks of wild ducks and geese. Graceful in the air, and comedians on the ice. The pond at Castalia, so crowded by waterfowl that you can hardly see the water. Perhaps they know of the bargains that can be found here at this time of year, like at the posh Radisson Inn.
Our best bargain right now is the 2 nights for one low price, $79.
That's how many people?
As many people as they'd like to put in the room.
The rooms offer balconies that overlook the frozen bay. Some of the package plans also include dinner at Shooter's nightclub and free ice skating on the dock. They furnish the ice skates. This is also a good time of year to explore some of the other favorite stops of the tourists, like this 110-year-old saloon and eatery in Bellevue. McLean's has been in business in the same location for 4 generations. Big, meaty spare ribs with special secret sauce are the main attraction in the family-type restaurant. They're also renowned for their lemonade. They've been using the same recipe since Prohibition.
During Prohibition, they would go down in the basement and sneak the gin and vodka in them, and you can't taste it.
They serve it today with or without the gin and vodka. A new attraction in the area that's bound to grow during the next few years is the Lake Erie Factory Outlet Center. So far, a grouping of 38 factory-owned stores where officials claim you can save as much as 70% if you're a careful shopper, especially right now.
Just like regular retail stores have January clearance sales, so do our stores here. And then what you're looking at are savings on top of factory outlet pricing.
So whether you fly or travel like I do, try the Sandusky Bay Vacation Land and take advantage of the winter prices. It's an easy destination. Just head west on I-90 and U.S. Route 2 for Erie County. Best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Neil held out on us. No ribs tonight, folks. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
See if he gets any cake. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening and go Cavs.
All this just across the state line in Pennsylvania, and the destination this week of our traveling man, Neil Zurcher. Here's a one-tank trip.
If anything evokes the charm of our winter, it's an old-fashioned horse-drawn sleigh ride. This attraction is just part of a special new complex that blends history with a bed and breakfast, just across the state line in Pennsylvania. This is Carriage Hill Farm, where you can come for just the ride or spend the night in this home that was built in 1830. It was once owned by the man whom cartoonists modeled the national figure Uncle Sam. His name was Dan Rice, and he was a circus man, and this also was once his winter circus headquarters. Today, it's a bed and breakfast.
We have 3 guest rooms that are available right now. It's $75 for a shared bath and $95 for a private bath.
The best part is that the farm is only a matter of minutes from Erie, Pennsylvania, and one of the best destinations for bargain hunters. This is the Blair Outlet Store, a mail-order firm that disposes of its discontinued items at real savings.
We've had ladies' dresses here for 50 cents. 50 cents. And sold nationally for $18.95. There are some shoes over there that we sell through our mail order for $59.85 also. And we sell those here for $16.95.
The outlet store is open Monday through Saturday, and the new items are added every week. Employees say the best time to shop is January, February, and March before the tourist season starts. If you like to hang around fire stations, you can have dinner in one here in Erie, Pennsylvania. This is the Puffer Belly on French Street. The restaurant is located in what was once an Erie fire station. The new owners have kept the flavor of the days when it was still a firehouse. It's operated by the same folks who operate the Puffer Belly restaurants in Berea and Kent, and the menus are similar. Erie, Pennsylvania can be reached by just heading east on Interstate 90. It's about an hour and a half's drive. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
We hope to see you back here tonight at 11. Have a good evening.
Well, quiet spots to get away from winter and brown eggs are a couple of things that interest our traveling man Neil Zurcher this week. If you like auctions, you'll want to come along on this one-tank trip.
Take a ride to Central Ohio, where the corners of the roads carry small signs advertising all sorts of crafts and products, many of them handmade and with pride. Like here at Country Oak, a small woodworking shop just outside of Berlin, where roll-top desks are a specialty. Roll-top desks made with the same quality our grandfathers would have expected. One of the owners, Terry Steiner, puts it this way.
Because of the Mennonite and Amish influence and wanting to be self-employed and building the pieces, they're not factory made, they're made individually, and you take a custom piece and make it the way you want it.
Actually, they'll make just about anything you want in the way of wood furniture. It's all custom made and takes from 12 to 15 months to complete. And if you'd like a quiet place to stay just up the road, look quick for the sign that says tourist rooms. This quaint room in this Mennonite family's home rents for just $15 to $20 a night. And you have the run of their turkey farm. Their dog, Ginger, will act as host outside as you look out over the Berlin Valley. Wednesday's the day to go bargain hunting here. That's when the Mount Hope Auction and Flea Market operates. Outside, you'll find all manner of things for sale, as well as some interesting people. Inside a small room, people gathered to bid at the auction of local farmers' produce and eggs. The sales are held every Wednesday, and while the mainstays are produce and livestock and hay, they also occasionally have other types of auctions. Just about anything might find its way to the auction block. Mount Hope in Holmes County, a rural, quiet destination for a winter one-tank. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news.
Sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11 o'clock. Have a
As Florida tourists. However, we're usually in such a hurry to get there that we miss a lot of interesting and fun attractions along the way. Our route is south on Interstate 75, and our destination today is southern Kentucky, Daniel Boone country. Here, just a few miles from the interstate, you can see the giant Daniel Boone National Forest, 664,000 acres that sprawls over 21 counties, with gorges and lakes and streams that seem little changed since Boone himself first walked through these hills. By the way, there really is a dog patch, Kentucky. The dog patch trading post used to be located about 5 miles from the London exit on I-75. But that was before the interstate highway was built.
We started out in dog patch, and the community grew around it, you know. We had, I know for sure, one restaurant and the post office itself and a couple of garages, so on and so forth, you know, gas stations. But when the interstate moved through, they bypassed us with an exit, and we ended up moving down here.
You'll find the usual souvenirs here, like T-shirts that tell the world where you've been. There's also a small shopping center adjoining the trading post with outlet stores that offer various items. We found some good bargains at the Western store, cowboy boots with prices from as low as $59 to $2,800 for a pair made of alligator. Before we leave, let's take a moment to visit one of the most magnificent sights in Kentucky, the Niagara of the South. This is Cumberland Falls, a 128-foot curtain of water that plunges 68 feet into the gorge below. You can literally walk right up to the brink of the falls.
And you know something interesting? This is the only place in the Western Hemisphere that has moonbows once or twice a year. It's just like a rainbow, except it happens at night.
The best part about all of these attractions is that each of them is just minutes away from Interstate 75. Tomorrow we fill up our tank and head for a rendezvous with the Chattanooga Choo Choo as we continue our journey to Florida. Remember, half the fun is getting there. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8, on a special one-tank trip.
And what do you know? Here he is, live and in person, all tan and fresh from Florida. Neil, we've got to know, how many tanks did it really take you to get to Florida?
Well, Dick, obviously, it depends how you drive and, of course, how far you drive. We used just over 3 tanks of gas over the 3 days it took us to get there, and we stayed within the speed limit at all times and stopped often to look at many things.
All right, Neil, tomorrow you're going to visit Tennessee. What else can we expect for the rest of the week?
Well, Robin, we'll be visiting a rather large chicken in Georgia, take a look at a river made famous by a song, and take an airboat into a gator-infested stream. And that's all before we reach Central Florida.
Wow. Now, I understand that you did bring me back a fruitcake?
We bought you a fruitcake at Claxton, Georgia. But unfortunately, we got caught in a traffic jam in Atlanta, and we didn't know when we were going to get to eat dinner, and we ate it.
What happened
to
the
my
fruitcake?
We ate it.
We know how much you
well.
love fruitcake.
The thought was there.
I know.
And I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look forward
Thank you,
to it.
Neil.
Thank
It'll
you.
be a lot of fun.
And up next, Casey talks with tribe skipper John McNamara.
And then Dick will join us again.
He is driving to Florida, and each night is reporting back on what he finds. Neil says half the fun is getting there. Tonight he is in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
As the hills of Kentucky give way to the mountains of Tennessee, you start wondering about your fellow motorists as the long miles go by. Is everyone headed nonstop for Florida? It certainly appears that way as we pull off Interstate 75 in Chattanooga to visit one of the most spectacular sights in America. I was practically alone on the famed Lookout Mountain Incline Railway car. For over 100 years, cars like these have been hauled by cable up the steep slope of Lookout Mountain. It's just a few feet short of 1 mile to the very peak.
You know, when we get to the top here, you're going to be above the clouds.
The mountain is part of the Civil War Chickamauga battlefield, and it was here in September of 1863 that the battle above the clouds took place between Union and Confederate forces. On a clear day from up here, you can see 200 miles to the Smoky Mountains. This is the world's steepest incline, and Jim Millwood, who runs the cable cars, says that if you don't like the crowds, now and the next couple of months is the best time to visit here.
No, you're not really crowded. June, July, and August, it's always crowded.
That's when the mountain's natural air conditioning kicks in. It's always 10 degrees cooler up here in the summertime. Back in Chattanooga, let's visit this train made famous by a song.
Pardon me, boy. Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo? Yes, yes, track 29.
This is indeed track 29 and the famous Chattanooga choo-choo. And you can spend the night here on track 29 sleeping aboard the train. This is now a unique Holiday Inn, and many of the rooms have been made out of old railroad cars, and they have quite a few.
There are 48 rooms aboard 24 authentic train cars. The train cars range from $85 to $95.
Annie says that this time of year, while you still should make reservations as far ahead as possible, you stand a good chance of even getting a train car room on weekends, their busiest time. There's far more to see here. The magnificent lobby that was once Chattanooga's terminal station is now the hotel lobby, the 80-foot tall dome restored to its appearance when it was new in 1908. Here, too, in the terminal building, you'll find the largest O-gauge railroad model exhibit in the world, a replica of Lookout Mountain in downtown Chattanooga and surrounding countryside in miniature. A good place to get an overview of this city that's been called the Gateway to the South. Tomorrow we fill our gas tank and head for Georgia, and a meeting with a giant chicken, and a stop at the Confederacy's most famous memorial, all on the way to Florida because half the fun is getting there. I'm Neil Zurcher, Newscenter 8, on a special one-tank trip.
And that is all of our news at 6. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Stay tuned for the CBS Evening News next with Dan Rather. We'll see you back here tonight at 11.
Go Cavs.
And hope in the lakeside city of Bay Village. Tonight on TV8's PM Magazine, meet the volunteers who are keeping the hope alive. Then, we'll meet a man who will pay anyone $25,000 who catches him off his diet. All this and more tonight at 7:30.
Well, this week our traveling man, Neil Zurcher, is seeing what there is to see while driving to Florida. Each day, his tank of gas takes him closer to the Sunshine State. Neil reports back about the interesting sights just off the interstate highway. Tonight, Neil is in Georgia.
If the boredom of interstate driving has reduced you to counting license plates from other states, then it's time to make another stop and look around. This is Georgia, and just outside of Atlanta in Marietta, I made a most unusual discovery.
There's a landmark here in Marietta, Georgia. It's this 51-foot tall chicken. Legend has it that 30 years ago when it was built, the beak was supposed to open and then snap shut, but the vibrations broke all the windows in the restaurant. Today, it's still a landmark. They say that pilots flying over look for it as a landmark.
Most folks who come to Georgia on a visit ask how to find Terra, the mansion that was the focal point in the movie Gone with the Wind. It never existed, nor for that matter did Rhett Butler or Scarlett O'Hara. But the Atlanta Historical Society has the doorway from the movie set on display, along with other memorabilia from the screenplay, immortalizing in a way a story that never happened. But Stone Mountain does portray real history of not only Atlanta, but the entire South. This is the impressive memorial to the Confederate States of America. The likenesses of Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, and Stonewall Jackson, preserved in granite. The 90 by 190-foot bas-relief sculpture is the largest in the world, and took nearly 50 years to complete. But there's much more here than just the sculpture.
The park encompasses 3,200 acres. In that area you're going to find golf courses, hotels, a number of restaurants, as well as our number of attractions.
And those attractions include such things as a Stone Mountain Railroad that carries tourists around the 5-mile base of the mountain. There are also the cable cars that lift tourists to the top of Stone Mountain. And there is the real plantation that has been preserved here to show generations now and in the future what life was like in the Old South. While park officials are quick to point out that Scarlett O'Hara was only the figment of an author's imagination, the story is so intertwined with real Southern history that the tour boat here at the park bears her name. And the magnificent 700-bell carillon in the middle of the lake frequently plays the theme from Gone with the Wind. Stone Mountain, Atlanta, Georgia is a place that recalls the glory and the tragedy that was the Confederacy. Tomorrow, when we fill our gas tank and head south again, we'll finally reach the Florida state line and get our first taste of fresh orange juice. We'll visit with some Ohioans also driving to Florida, find out what they've stopped to visit on the way down, and we'll discover what the #1 Florida destination is. Hopefully prove that half the fun is getting there on this special one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
With that top-down thing.
These one-tank trips from Ohio to Florida. Neil has been stopping all along the interstates to show us some of the attractions and some of the interesting sidelights of driving to the Sunshine State. Tonight he finds the orange juice flows free, at least at the Florida state line.
Florida must be the roadside billboard capital of America. You almost can't see the trees for all the signs promoting everything from motels to tourist attractions. One sign I was very happy to see was this one at the state line that said we had finally reached the Sunshine State. It was here at the Welcome Center that we caught up with Ohioans Ray and Ruth Wengstrom of Olmsted Township, who were also driving to Florida. They've been doing this for several years. So do they stop to enjoy all the attractions along the way?
Nope, he just gets in that car and heads south.
You're missing half the fun.
I know. I agree.
It's also here at the Welcome Center that you get your first real taste of Florida in the form of free juice.
Which would you like, grapefruit or orange?
What's the #1 question that the tourist folks get asked here at the Welcome Center?
How far is it to Disney World?
And the second most asked question?
Where are the alligators?
I was wondering about that too, so I must admit that when we came across this stream and stopped to look around, I admired the beauty with one eye while keeping the other eye out for gators. You know, if you've ever heard the song Way Down Upon the Swanee River, well, this is the river that Stephen Foster immortalized in song. Speaking of rivers, you can have a unique opportunity to explore the real Florida here at Kissimmee. Miles of cypress trees line the stream as you roar into the wild in a miniature airboat. This is a place where it's hard to believe that only a few miles away are some of the biggest hotels and fanciest entertainment complexes in the world. Here there is just blue sky and Spanish moss draping tall trees. As for driving those airboats, well, they only go about 8 miles per hour, and it takes just a few minutes instruction, and off you go. I admit I was expecting to find an alligator under every root along the shoreline. Every floating leaf reminded me of Crocodile Dundee. I was very happy I waited until I was back on shore to ask if there really were alligators out there.
Yeah, there are gators out there. You really don't see them this time of year, but yeah, summertime you see quite a few of them out there.
How big?
I've seen them anywhere from 6 to 8 feet.
Alligators aside, you can't visit Florida without picking up some oranges as souvenirs. It's been a bad year for farmers here. Frost wiped out many of the groves, but you'll still find lots of roadside stands where Florida oranges are available. Our final destination tomorrow will be Central Florida in the Orlando area. We're going to fill our tank and see, besides the Mouse House, what that city and area has to offer. We'll look at some entertainment from 1,000 years ago. So be with us as we wrap up our special one-tank trip to Florida, where getting here has been half the fun. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
How did it take him to get back?
I think it took him 5 trips for tanks. The wind's against you.
That is all of our news at 6. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Stay tuned with the CBS Evening News next. We hope to see you back.
Traveling man Neil Zurcher wraps up his week-long drive to Florida, showing us that half the fun is getting there.
Forecast, eventually mostly sunny skies for today, possibly a high of 72.
Well, we've driven almost 1,400 miles and we're here, Orlando, Florida, one of the fastest growing tourist areas in America. 11 million tourists visit here each year, mostly thanks to Mickey Mouse and Disney World, Epcot Center, and a whole host of other big-name attractions that call Central Florida home. But since they usually get all the attention, I thought that I would look at some of the lesser-known things to do here, as well as visit some attractions that were here before the mouse came to town. Cypress Gardens, with its world-famed water skiers, gardens, and water ballet, has been around for more than 50 years. Located in nearby Winter Haven, it's still a tourist favorite.
And there's some other nearby attractions like Silver Springs, where they used to make the Tarzan movies.
It's still a place where you can get a close-up look at an alligator or see how quick a snake can react.
Everybody ready? Shouldn't take him very long.
And Bach Tower still gives a quiet place to see Florida, much as the tourists saw it 50 years ago. The beauty and the peacefulness of this tropical place, where music and the smell of orange blossoms still fills the air. Aside from the giant entertainment worlds here, my vote for the most unique entertainment is this: a dinner theater like you've never seen before. A place where time turns back 1,000 years, to the era of knights and trial by sword. This is called Medieval Times, and it's located inside a real castle. And the highlight of the evening is a thundering finale, when stuntmen dressed as knights of old, using real weapons, do battle for your applause. One point, no matter how you arrive in the Orlando area, bring lots of money. Here's a list of what some of the major attractions charge for admission, and this doesn't include what additionally you will spend for food in a hotel. So is there a less expensive way to enjoy Central Florida? We had dinner with Ed and Heidi Bates, longtime residents of Orlando. Bates is a former journalist who has written about travel in the area. For openers, our dinner here at the Sandbar restaurant was all-you-could-eat crab at about $14 a person. Bates' first suggestion: find restaurants and motels away from the entertainment complex. He also suggested taking advantage of the many free attractions in the area.
The ocean, the Gulf, either side, you're real close, 45 minutes. You can go to Daytona Beach. You can go to the Cape where they launch all the spacecraft.
Bates says the very best entertainment bargain in Florida is the Kennedy Spaceport USA, where you can see up close America's space program, both past and present, and the admission is free.
You know, another way to save some money on your trip here to Florida is to write ahead to the Orlando Visitor and Convention Bureau and ask for a free copy of their visitor's guide. It has about $200 worth of discount coupons inside for the major attractions.
So if you do a little planning, you can still enjoy many of the attractions here and take home something that lasts far longer than souvenirs: the memories of that Florida sunshine. And half the fun was getting here. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8, on a special one-tank trip.
And up next in our Sports Extra
tonight, a one-tank trip to the land of heart-shaped tubs and a place that calls itself the land of love, the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania.
You feel the glow as you enter this golden valley in eastern Pennsylvania. They call this the land of love. One of America's best-known honeymoon capitals, the Pocono Mountains. A place of swans and sunsets. And certainly the most famous of the attractions here are the Caesars Resorts, 4 of them where you can take long walks, ride snowmobiles, go roller skating, and a host of other activities aimed at keeping young and old lovers entertained. Here at the Brookdale complex, they even say, bring along the kids.
We have a social director on the property of Brookdale. He takes care of all the children. If parents want to go out by themselves for a while, we have a social director that can keep the children occupied.
And there is the famous resort meals, big portions, and all you can eat, all included in the price of your stay. And it's where you stay that's the real story here. Inside these wooded buildings are the resort's accommodations. The best they call the Champagne Towers. Each has a wood-burning fireplace that offers a quiet place to relax.
Good morning.
And in the morning, if you request, they'll serve you breakfast in your huge round bed in a room with mirror walls. Caesars are the folks who gave the world the heart-shaped bathtub for 2. They keep that theme going here with a heart-shaped swimming pool for 2 inside your bedroom. The temperature is always kept at 90 degrees.
But this is the real highlight of the day. Your very own bubble bath in a giant champagne glass in your living room.
Some may call it tacky, some may call it outrageous, but thousands have called it fun. In case you're curious, a 3-day, 2-night stay in this room for 2 people that includes meals and activities starts at $465. A romantic getaway to the Pocono Mountains can be reached by heading east on Interstate 80. It's about an 8-hour drive. And best of all, it's just a 1-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And we haven't seen Neil since. See you at 11.
Night. Traveling man Neil Zurcher heads for Lima, Ohio on a 1-tank trip.
The little Cupid doll still stands guard over the front door, just as she has since 1928, when this Cupid hamburger stand first opened in downtown Lima. Little has changed here in the last 62 years. At least 3 generations of Lima residents have lined up at this counter for Cupid burgers. And down through the years, the menu has stayed the same, very plain.
Very simple. Hamburgers, chili, fry, mulch.
They claim this was the first fast food hamburger stand in the nation. What's been the secret to its success over a half a century?
We use fresh produce, we use fresh everything. We grind our meat here daily and patty daily.
They also bake their pies fresh every day, and most prices on the menu are under $2. Lima also has a unique county park system that offers this scenic trail for the visually impaired at Teddy Bear Park. A wire railing follows the edge of the half-mile trail, and braille placards are placed along the trail to describe the trees that can be felt, the birds that can be heard, and the flowers that can be smelled. The park is open year-round. However, the trail will not accommodate wheelchairs. Admission is free. As you approach Lima and Interstate 75, you see this large plant with 10 flags in front of it. This is the U.S. Plastics Factory, home of what they call the largest plastic store in America. Miles of aisles hold just about every conceivable kind of plastic gadget made, including some that serve double duty. If it doesn't sell for its original purpose, then give it another name.
We're making tanks for a silver reclaimer that reclaims silver from photographic and X-ray solution, but these tanks are off color, so we sell them for dog houses.
They also sell plastic products made by other companies. If it's made of plastic, they probably have it in stock. The store is open Monday through Friday. Lima, Ohio can be reached by I-71 to U.S. Route 30 west and then south on I-75. It's just a 1-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news at 6. See you at 11.
Go Cavs.
What to be leashed or fenced in? More about the proposed law and reaction to it on News Center 8 at 11. And here's what's coming.
They were America's favorite eating places before all the McBurgers started popping up at every crossroads. Now, our Neil Zurcher says one of those old diners has a new lease on life right here in Cleveland.
I guess I should start out by saying that this diner is probably Cleveland's newest old eating place, and I'll bet it's in the most unique spot you'll ever see in this town. Here at Southeast Harley-Davidson, the service department is always crowded with motorcycles that are in various stages of repair. And now it is also home to this authentic 1946 Worcester dining car, called appropriately the Harley Diner. This diner in a dealership has become perhaps the most unusual customer lounge in the country.
Having it indoors would help preserve it after we did all the work on it and the restoration, and to allow a customer to actually watch his bike being worked on.
The diner was originally in New Hampshire until last year when Debbie bought it and trucked it back to Cleveland to become her one-of-a-kind customer's lounge.
We work a lot of hours here, and obviously people do need to eat.
Debbie has made one important difference in the diner. Her food is several steps above the usual diner fare. The ground sirloin is made fresh each day. Potatoes are fresh cut for French fries. And the milkshakes, made so thick, a straw stands by itself. The popularity of the diner in a garage is such that while it has only been open for a few months, most of its 28 seats are filled at lunchtime. The jukebox still plays 3 songs for a quarter, songs from the 50s and 60s, all from its original location in New Hampshire.
It was totally intact and had everything with it.
Everything we see in here, the equipment, everything is still the original equipment that was here?
Everything is the original equipment.
By the way, you don't have to own a motorcycle or even buy one to eat at the Harley Diner. It's open to the public every day when the motorcycle dealership is open, closed on Sunday. Neil Zurcher, News Center 8 at the Harley Diner, inside the Southeast Harley-Davidson Service Department.
And that's our news at 6, the CBS Evening News.
Just a couple of the discoveries of our traveling man Neil Zurcher as he sets out for this week's one-tank trip.
These covered bridges are Ashtabula County's trademark. They have more of them than any other county in Ohio, each one more scenic than the next. Ashtabula County is also fast becoming famous for its wineries. And one of the most unique is Ferranti's Winery, the only winery in Ohio that also has a sit-down restaurant right in the middle of the vineyard. In the summer and fall, you can eat on the patio overlooking the rows of grapevines.
Oh, the aroma from the grapes are really something.
The winery specializes in what else? Italian food, and the servings are hearty ones. No one goes away hungry. The winery started out a dozen years ago with 4 types of wine. Today they produce 14 varieties, all using only Ohio grapes. Ashtabula is also home to this unusual store that combines Native American crafts with a paperback book exchange service, an inexpensive way of keeping up with your reading material.
Give them 25% of the cover price coming in and 50% going out.
Which means?
So if they have enough books coming in, the most they'd ever have to pay for a book would be 10 cents.
The very best bargain I found on this trip was this very unique bed and breakfast on Route 84 in Saybrook Township. For $40 a night, a couple gets much more than just a bed and breakfast.
And you get a kitchen, a dining room, a living room downstairs, and then upstairs we have 2 bedrooms, a sitting room, and a bath.
That's right, you get almost an entire house, all private, a kitchen with snacks, a dining room, a country living room, 2 nicely furnished bedrooms, and your basic country home bathroom. One other attractive feature here, the Wilsons also welcome families with children and will even babysit while the parents go out for the evening. Ashtabula County can be reached by just heading east on Interstate 90, and best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news.
And some good eating tips. All part of this week's one-tank trip as our traveling man Neil Zurcher heads that little Nash of his down 71 straight for Medina.
Look around. Time seems to run backwards here in Medina. The old clock on the main street is still counting that time minute by minute. Inviting store windows line the streets. There's even a wooden Indian. You'll find the unusual and the authentic here in Medina, like Whitey's, the last of the real honest-to-gosh Army-Navy surplus stores.
Here we have the Israeli gas mask. Then we have the American helmet. We have the cargo parachute and the British Field bathtub.
Back in the 1800s, A.I. Root brought Medina and the honeybee together, and the two have been synonymous ever since. Today, the old Root beekeeping and candle factory is called West Liberty Commons, a complex of craft and gift shops offering Root products from beeswax and other candles to the latest scents and oils to perfume and decorate your home. There's even an old-fashioned soda fountain where you can have a huge sundae drenched in fresh honey. Robin and Tim eat your heart out. Speaking of eating, just outside of town on Route 18 is Danny Boy's Farm Market, a great place for fresh produce and fresh bakery. Just look at that sour cream pie and those fresh fruit cheesecakes. And for a quick lunch, they have bargain price deli sandwiches, all made with their fresh homemade bread and rolls.
Have a good day. Have a good day.
Go a bit farther on Route 18 and you'll find perhaps the only used buggy sales lot in Ohio. This is Amish Country Buildings, where you can buy a gazebo, a bridge, a used buggy, and even a brand new two-seater rural outhouse, which incidentally costs about $700. For dinner, we stopped at this historic old Victorian mansion that now houses Penny's Poorhouse Restaurant. A unique feature is that there is no menu. Everything is made from scratch, and the bill of fare is whatever the chef feels like making that day. The usual specialties are Italian and veal dishes. Still another reason to stop here is the owner, Connie Cotterini, who can usually be found tending bar. His name may not be familiar to you, but his music became the anthem for high school and college students in the 1950s.
The quiet walk, the noisy fun, the barroom prize we almost won. We will have these moments to remember.
That's right, Connie Cotterini was a member of the Four Lads who in their singing career in the 50s and 60s with Columbia Recordings rolled up a total of 4 gold records. Today, while still making a few reunion appearances with the rest of his singing group, Connie says he's perfectly contented to just tend bar in his Medina restaurant.
Well, this is like my show business. You know, the people, I don't have to go and see them. They come and see me for a change.
And while Connie's audiences today may just be his customers, they're just as appreciative of his singing as audiences have always been.
We will have these moments to remember.
Medina, a lot to see and do, and it's right in our own backyard. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
He still sounds real good, doesn't he?
Sure does.
And I'm starved. That's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News is next.
Nice of Neil to bring us that outhouse instead of dessert.
Nothing.
Thanks for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11 in mud or go bowling. Just a couple of the attractions at a huge indoor resort he discovered on this week's one-tank trip to Canada.
If you've ever stood on our lakefront in Cleveland and looked out at the lake and wondered what's directly across from us, well, this is it. This is Erio, Ontario, Canada, population about 600.
Erio has one quiet main street that sees little traffic this time of year, and one very good restaurant, OJ and Molly's, that specializes in fish, especially Lake Erie fish. The day we visited, I tried their Lake Erie perch with Cajun spices. It was worth the trip here. Just 20 miles north is Chatham, Ontario, a little larger town and home of one of the most unique resorts in southern Canada. Wheels Inn, a 7-acre indoor complex that includes dozens of activities. There are 2 100-foot water slides for their indoor pool, a playland for kids that looks like it was just transferred from an amusement park. There are also putting greens, tennis courts, shuffleboard, and an exercise room. And there is even more.
Jeanette, do men really and truly have this done to their faces?
And she assured me that they do. This is the Inn's co-ed spa, where you can get everything from a mud pack facial to a relaxing herbal wrap in scented towels, and all the other pampering that you'd expect in a spa. You say you'd rather go bowling? They have a bowling alley. If you want to bring along the kids, they also operate a daycare center and can provide in-room babysitters. And how about bingo? That's right, they also have a bingo hall on the premises. There are also lots of interesting people you'll meet here, like Joe Lassard, past cherry pit spitting champion of the world in Canada, who gave us a few winning tips.
You gotta curl her up and get her out and blow. That's
that way, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. To all of this, add hot tubs, skee ball, and a lot of other games. And what's the cost to spend a night here?
The rate would be around $89, $88 a night.
That's for how many people?
That's for 2 people in the room.
And that's in Canadian funds. In U.S. dollars, it's even less depending on the exchange rate when you visit. Chatham, Canada, a great place to visit just across the lake. And best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
You know, I thought Neil had that certain glow about him when he came back. It must have been from that mud pack.
Looks a little like 007 now. Well, that's our news at 6. The CBS Evening News with Dan Rather is next.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you back here tonight at 11 o'clock. Have a really good evening.
Bargains and free things to do in a foreign country. Yes, free. Just across the lake. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip to Canada.
When you visit Windsor, Canada, you're really not very far from home, just kitty corner across the lake. Yet remember, you are in a foreign country. And one of the first stops you'll want to make is at a bank or a trust company to exchange some money. Most merchants will accept American dollars, but since the Canadian dollar is not worth as much as American money, you'll get a better value by exchanging your cash. And a Canadian banker says you're also better off leaving your credit cards at home.
The credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all tend to charge premium rates.
Miller says you save more using cash and traveler's checks. The Windsor International Hilton Luxury Hotel is a good place to make use of some of those savings. You can spend the night in a room with a panoramic view of the Detroit skyline just across the river. During the winter months, the hotel has some great bargain packages.
That package is running from $58 to $65 for a room. That is, of course, Canadian.
Just outside of town is one of Canada's best free attractions. This is Colasante's Tropical Gardens, acres of exotic plants under glass, along with a host of other unusual items. You'll find the largest cactus garden in Canada here. A bird aviary with hundreds of rare and exotic birds to share your thoughts with.
Hello.
There's also the petting zoo with all manner of friendly animals. They're just waiting to meet your kids. And the list goes on. There's an indoor playground, an eating area in a grove of real orange and grapefruit trees. By the way, if you see a plant you'd like to buy, don't be worried about taking it back across the border.
Everything we've got here can go back to customs except citrus trees and bulbs.
When you do head home, make a final stop at the duty-free shop at the Tunnel in Windsor. You'll find real bargain prices on liquor, cigarettes, perfume, candy, and a lot of other things. But you have to make the purchase as you're leaving Canada. Windsor, our neighbor just across the lake, and best of all, just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Now, that parrot couldn't say hello, but he did say one-tank trip.
Just a Neil Zurcher. Today, he heads for southern Tuscarawas County on a one-tank trip.
The time was the 1940s, World War II, and Denison, Ohio was on the main line for troop trains going to war. A canteen started at this railroad station, became the third largest in the nation.
And over 1 million servicemen were served here in Denison at the canteen, and it was so popular that they nicknamed Denison Dreamsville, and Glenn Miller, who happened to come through town on one of the trains, picked up on this and wrote a song, Dreamsville, Ohio, about it.
Today the trains are gone, but the old station stands now a museum as a tribute to those soldiers who once called this Dreamsville. But this is not your usual museum. Some of the building is very much alive with new business, from local crafts offered here at the Silk Sensations, all handmade, to this little shop called Sweet Dreams Depot, where they make fudge.
It's probably this one, the Turtle Sundae.
What's it got in it?
It's got homemade caramel and whole pecans in the center layer.
There are some trains running here. These N-gauge scale models fill one room of the depot. When the project is done in a year or so, this will be a miniature replica of Denison in its railroad glory years. And there's still a restaurant operating in the old depot where spaghetti and pizza are the specialty. This hand-rolled pasta and sauce with meatballs and salad costs under $4, a good value. There's another connection to the railroad here in Denison at the First Presbyterian Church, the Railway Chapel. Built by railroad workers, they made the pews like seats on a train. Each of the pews reverses. Just next door in Urickville, you'll find some of the most unusual cemetery monuments perhaps in the world. Many of these were made by clay pipe workers who fashioned their own tombstones out of the pipe they made for sewers and drains. While clay pipe and trains may be fading industries, apple chips are putting nearby Newcomerstown on the map. The folks at the Tasty Company say their new apple product is available all over the state now. Besides tasting good, it's good for you.
It has about 2 grams of fiber content per ounce, so it's a very good snack.
How about that old quotation, an apple a day keeps the doctor away?
Well, and if that's the case, then about a half a bag.
Half a bag.
Southern Tuscarawas County, easy to get to, and best of all, just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And compliments of Neil, some apple chips.
Never had them till about a week ago, and they're really good.
Have to try them.
That's our report for this Wednesday evening. For Denise, Dick, and Casey, I'm Dick Russ. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Stay tuned now for this.
And an 83-year-old restaurant where pie is king. Just 2 of the stops made by our traveling man Neil Zurcher this week as he sets out on a one-tank trip to Sydney, Ohio.
If you like small towns, you're going to love Sydney, Ohio, a place where the courthouse is the largest building in town. But this community's impact goes far beyond the city limits. This is the home of Amos Press, where you're invited to take a free tour.
We publish Cars and Parts, a car magazine for car collectors, the Sydney Daily News, which is a local newspaper, Lynn Stamp News, which is for stamp collectors and is a weekly newspaper, Coin World for coin collectors, which is a weekly.
If these publications sound familiar, it's because they're distributed all over the world and are highly regarded by hobbyists.
We have subscribers in most countries. We have some in countries you wouldn't believe because some of them you wouldn't think spoke English or could read or write English, but they do.
Surrounded by cornfields just outside of town is the only museum in the world dedicated to the memory of the ill-fated British ship Titanic. This is the life work of Ohio artist John Whitman, who is presently building this mammoth scale model of the ship that sank after hitting an iceberg in 1912. Only 3 years old, they already have over 3,000 items relating to the Titanic and have just added new displays like this diorama of the ship's last moments.
We've got 9 months of work in it. People don't realize how much work actually goes into it. We are adding sound effects to the upstairs, also the Marconi room.
It was the fact that Marconi or radio rooms were not staffed around the clock in 1912 that contributed to the sinking and the loss of life aboard the ship. There is also a new display of the recent discovery of the Titanic wreckage on the floor of the Atlantic. If you still need a reason to come to Sydney, then this is the right spot. The Spot Restaurant, which has stood on this corner for 83 years.
Since 1907, when a fellow by the name of Spot Miller, who got the nickname,
came in and set a chuck wagon up, and the health department wouldn't let him have the wheels on, so he took them off.
Spot Miller started a tradition that is still going. The hamburgers are ground fresh each day. Soups are made from scratch, and they make pies. Homemade pies so good they sell 30,000 of them a year.
Most famous pie is one called old-fashioned cream, which is a mixture of cream and milk and sugar and starch. Special mixture, secret recipe, I might add.
But it's no secret that the pie and all the food here at the Spot restaurant tastes great. Sydney, Ohio is about a 4-hour drive from Cleveland, and the best part, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
Artists and craftspeople, all part of this week's one-tank trip. Here's Neil Zurcher, and he's headed for Geauga County.
You won't find any fancy mannequins or flashing neon signs here at Kleinfeld's Country Department Store. It's just what the name implies, a plain and simple country store where blue denim is sold for work, not for play and dress. A store that specializes in clothing for the hard-working Amish farm families that live near here. What's the difference between Amish pants and the pants I might wear?
Well, these are made a little different. They have a flap on them that I will take off and show you.
There's no zipper.
No zipper.
The pants sell for about $20 a pair. A good straw hat, well, it can cost from $4 to $10.
Good sturdy material, we wear well, and we sell an awful lot of these to other than Amish people.
If you're looking for good Amish-style plain country food, you can't do better than Mary Yoder's Restaurant, where from $4 and up, you can get everything from an old-fashioned hot roast beef sandwich to an all-you-can-eat chicken dinner. Nothing fancy here, but the portions are hearty, and everything is made fresh each morning. Incidentally, the restaurant, which is fairly small, will soon be moving to new and larger quarters here in Middlefield. Up the road in Burton, the water tower casts a shadow over the entire main street. That's where you'll find this unusual store, called Artisans Underground. Here you'll find nearly a dozen craftspeople, all under one roof. From weaver, like Nancy Hart, some of her specially designed clothing.
This is a double woven garment that I created that's made out of solid black wool on one side and plaid on the face of it.
All at one time.
All woven at the same time.
In this eclectic shop, you can learn from a maple syrup producer, Marge Shook, that a gallon of maple syrup should weigh at least 11 pounds. She'll tell you about her rare craft of wheat weavings.
Almost truly a lost art, very old traditional craft that dates back centuries. And they believed that, initially that the spirit of the grain lived in the wheat, and so that they needed to preserve some from harvest to harvest.
From wheat weaving to photographs to leather work and artificial flowers, you'll find it all here at Artisans Underground. The village
largest theater organs in the world. M&M stuck. Just two of the stops tonight as our traveling man Neil Zurcher sets out on a one-tank trip.
Even national publications have recognized Waynesville, Ohio as the antique capital of the Midwest. Just about every building or home along the main street seems to be an antique store specializing in one thing or another. From a figure of Uncle Sam that towers over a Victorian mansion, to a dealer who seems to specialize in all kinds and shapes of weather vanes.
I think people can find almost any kind of antique they want to. We do have a lot of specialty shops, but more probably are general.
Actually, at last count, there were at least 31 antique stores here in downtown Waynesville, a place where you can buy a bit of history. Speaking of history, in Millville, Ohio, you can still find the theater organ that was once billed as one of the largest in the world. The Shady Nook restaurant was actually built around this huge musical instrument that was heard on Cincinnati radio station WLW back in the 1930s.
At that time, before the FCC regulations,
WLW was 500,000 watts. So it played all over North and South America. This was the most listened to program in the 30s, 40s.
The organ has 30 ranks of pipes with 4 manuals and 268 stops, and is played nightly by Maestro Van Jones, who keeps guests' fingers and toes tapping. By the way, the food is also good here, and the ribs are some of the best that we've tasted. The sauce, Omert says, is the secret.
Uses 2 ingredients that I don't know if anyone's ever included in a sauce, one being black coffee and applesauce. That's just 2 of them. Obviously, there's a lot more.
So, after some ribs and a little organ music, you might be ready for a night at one of Ohio's state park lodges. This is at Houston Woods. The lodge sits in the middle of one of the most beautiful natural forests in Ohio, where an early morning drive through fog-shrouded roads can lead you to small waterfalls, quiet brooks, and even a feeding deer. Southwest Ohio can easily be reached by Interstate 71 from Cleveland, and best of all, it's just a one-tank trip. I'm Neil Zurcher, News Center 8.
And that's our news at 6.
Tourist attraction, as well as discovering a restaurant where crab is king. Here's Neil in a one-tank trip.
One of our newest attractions here on the North Coast, the River Queen, has set sail down the Grand River in Lake County.
First cruise of the 1990 cruising season. It's a little chilly out here.
This is an authentic paddle wheel driven boat, just like those used on the Ohio and Mississippi. But her cargo will be passengers that will be seeing the sights along the waterway between Grand River and Fairport Harbor.
Well, we actually go from the marina, Rutherford's Landing, out into the lake, and we can go around the wall, in the inner harbor and around the wall, and slowly, cruise slowly. It's approximately 2 hours.
There are even plans for later this summer to put in at a nearby beach with a shallow draft boat and allow the passengers to go on shore for a barbecue before resuming their cruise. And speaking of eating, Grand River is also home to Pickle Bill's Lobster House, a seafood restaurant that has become locally famous for its all-you-can-eat snow crab legs, about $15 per person. They sell a lot of crabs each week.
During the summer, about 6,000 pounds, and during the winter, anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 pounds.
And it's not just crab legs. They also offer all-you-can-eat Lake Erie perch for just $9.95 a person. Good food at good prices and in a very nautical atmosphere. Before we leave, let's drive across the river and make a visit to the historic old Fairport Harbor Marine Museum and Lighthouse. There's a brand new curator, Pamela Brent, who'll be happy to show you through and pass along some interesting lore about the Great Lakes and its lighthouses. Like when it came time to change the bulb in early lighthouses, lighthouse keepers had a weighty problem on their hands.
This one weighs about 3/4 of a ton, and this is a medium-sized one.
By the way, Pamela didn't get all of her knowledge of lake history from books. She also got it from some very practical experience.
I sailed the Great Lakes. I sailed for 3 years.
A taste of our Lake Erie history and some fun things to see and do right next door in Lake County.
From their fury.
Well, tonight, Dick has a special report about a town that learned the hard way never to say never. Dick?
One of the worst tornadoes in Ohio weather history killed 18 people in Lorain County, almost totally leveled a tiny Ohio township. Residents there will never forget that April night 25 years ago. Palm Sunday, 1965. In rural Pittsfield, Ohio, the Sheffields had been working on their taxes. Henry went up to bed. His wife, Amy, was watching the late news.
And then when this storm come and the awful noise and the rattling of the windows, you just knew that the windows was going to break. It was so bad.
Henry ran downstairs. The couple grabbed hands and headed for the basement. They made it as far as the kitchen.
Well, I remember, I think I said, oh, as I was being raised up towards the ceiling, and then I could feel that his hand was pulled away from me.
It came without warning and was over in 90 seconds. The tornado killed 9 people in Pittsfield. The town's 2 churches, town hall, and gas station grocery were reduced to heaps of unrecognizable rubble. The Sheffield's dairy farm was demolished. Half of their cows lay dead. Carl Crapo, then a deputy with the Lorain County Sheriff's Department, was approaching Pittsfield on his way to work during the storm. He was the first officer on the scene.
Then I went down Hollier Road there and made it down to 303, and that's when I noticed the Sheffield's house was gone, period. And we started combing the area where the house was. The house was literally moved right out into Route 303.
The rescuers heard a woman's voice crying out for help from beneath a pile of shattered wood that once was a home. It was Amy Sheffield.
Thank God we could hear her voice, and we picked up a sighting, and there she was laying down in a little area. In her hands she had her glasses, and her glasses weren't even broke.
Henry escaped with a deep gash across his throat. Their son Tom, who was sleeping in the Sheffield home when the tornado erupted, suffered a broken arm.
I remember the window blowing in on me, and that's the last I remember until I woke up. I think I was out in the side yard, in the north of where the house would have been.
The tornado dipped down 3 times in Lorain County and again in Strongsville, ravaging more than 200 homes and businesses in its path. Pittsfield took the hardest hit.
The fields were just filled with debris. Cars that looked like they were hit by trains. They were just rolled and continually rolled and then just mangled right up.
The roads were impassable. Jagged strips of metal and lumber laden with nails flattened the tires of rescue vehicles and injured rescue workers. Tombstones in the Pittsfield Cemetery were tossed about like child's play. The soldier was knocked from the town's Civil War monument. One of the Sheffield sons was only a week away from moving his family into an old brick farmhouse across the street from his parents.
Like behind the wallpaper and stuff, we found straw and, particles of even like manure from the barnyards and stuff underneath the wallpaper.
The break of dawn cast an even harsher light on the devastation. Neil Zurcher, then a radio reporter for WEOL in Lorain, Elyria, described the scene for his listeners.
Hundreds of rescue workers are pouring across the roads and fields. Their faces show the shock. Nearby, an old man stands, staring at the intersection where once stood his church. And a voice that is half cursing and half prayerful mutters over and over, "My God, my God."
25 years later, the sound of 100 freight trains coming at her is more than just a haunting memory for Amy Sheffield. She was paralyzed that night and remains wheelchair bound.
You see, I've got a lot of bones out of place at the end of my spine, and that hurts all the while. So I can't forget it for a minute.
The Sheffields still live in Pittsfield. They rebuilt their home and farm on the same spot. And yes, they do worry about lightning striking twice.
What do you think I am when the wind storms come up out west? Pacing the floor is right.
The people in Pittsfield had no advance warning of the tornado that Palm Sunday night in April, although severe thunderstorm advisories had been issued. 25 later is predicting tornadoes is still a tricky business at best, but tomorrow night at 6 we'll show you some brand new technological devices that should save precious minutes and lives.
Simply amazing, that story.
25 years ago.
Also showed clearly why you get out of the car.
Good point.
Yeah.
Get in a low-lying ditch or depression. As we pointed out last night, abandon a car if you realize you cannot outrun the storm.
Boy.
All right, thank you, Dick. Well, homecoming for a hot